Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the 1904 Club, the Hull City podcast from the Hull Daily Mail. And this week it is just a trio to talk about the game on Saturday. No Pruts this afternoon, unfortunately, but Fletch, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right.
Good.
The team that I cover now, they're in the FA Cup fourth quali, so I've got that draw to look forward to later. City won, and my partner's team won, so a nice treble for the
Happy
weekend.
days. And the ray of sunshine that was always, Burnsy. How are you, Sunbeam?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm a bit. I'm trying to get my head around City. I think maybe on Saturday, first time I sort of saw what he's about, but I'm still a bit baffled by it. So I'm looking forward to the chat today. But congratulations on the win, and I think that's the big thing really, because 120th birthday. How many times have we seen typical City syndrome and blow a big occasion against a team in poor form and everything like that? So credit to them for the win. But if I can give you an analogy to kick off, it's like watching Strictly, and Fletch knows all about Strictly, old twinkle toes there. It's like watching Strictly and all the teams are doing the lambada and City are in the background doing breakdancing. It's just sort of weird. But congratulations on the win. I thought I'd throw that in for you, Fletch.
I love the fact you've picked two dances that don't feature on Strictly Come Dancing, Burnsy. I think that's impressive.
It was, I was trying to labour a point. But
I know.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to the chat. What did you make of it, Baz?
I was relieved because for the reasons you've set out and that so many City fans did to me before the game. As poor as Cardiff had been, it was all set up, wasn't it? With all the, and I've got to say this on record that I thought the club did a phenomenal job of the 120 of everything that went before it, the kit which was first class. The whole event was really nicely done. So everybody behind the scenes at the MKM Stadium, congratulations. Yeah, I was a bit nervous, I've got to be honest, just because they've got a big crowd, the birthday, the big occasion. Cardiff had been rubbish, manager sacked, everything. It was all set up, wasn't it? And after 18 minutes, when Callum Robinson was given the freedom of the park to go and smack in the net, you go in and they're 1-0 down. You're thinking, Christ, here we go again. And the crowd there were murmurs as soon as that went in. There were murmurs, and it was. I said this to Tim Walter after the game that it was absolutely vital that they scored so quickly and they nipped it in the bud, because I think if it had stayed 0-1 for any length of time, Cardiff would have grown in confidence. City would have their confidence from Stoke would have perhaps dissipated a little, and the crowd would have got really edgy. Because Fletcher said this before, that let's not forget their home form in 2024 has been scandalous, absolute garbage. 2 wins in 24 is nothing short of shambolic. And it was a key reason why they fluffed it and didn't get in the playoffs, and it's carried on so far this season. And after 18 minutes, when they're 1-0 down to a team that had only scored a goal in 6 games, you could understand fans getting a bit twitchy, weren't they, Burnsy? But as I say, credit to City, credit to Tim and his team, because they responded so quickly, and then they got in front, which is something we'd only seen at Stoke last week. So and then they killed it off, and that was a criticism. I know people are moaning that we keep harping on back to last season, but we're going to. That's football. We will always compare to last season because it is so recent and so many changes, and they did so well up to a point last season. But one of the major criticisms at home last season was when they got in front, they didn't put the foot down. They didn't go and kill a team off, and they dropped so many points because of that inability. Whereas in successive games now, they've gone behind, not great, but they fought back. They've got in front, and instead of sitting on that lead and allowing any kind of potential for difficulties, they've gone and killed the game off very quickly. And they did that at Stoke, and they did that against Cardiff, Burnsy.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you, because I think they didn't kill the game. I know they won the game, and eventually they sort of killed the game off. But there were periods when they were offering opportunity to Cardiff, and I'm thinking a better side than Cardiff would would have got themselves back in the game. But they won, and it's 2 back-to-back wins in his first home win. They get 3 different scorers all getting their first goals for the club. There are big positives out of it, but I look at it. Tiger Dorr got in touch to say it's disorganised chaos. I mean, I'm going to disagree with Tiger Dorr. I think it's organised chaos. I think this is the plan. And I don't know about you two, but I'm still getting my head around it.
But yeah, Fletch, before I come to you, Fletch, yeah, what I would say is I totally agree. I thought they started off really poorly. The first, pretty much up until 1 or 2 moments in the first few minutes, but didn't really amount to anything. Then they conceded the goal. I thought that capped off a really slow start again. But what obviously they then turned it around, and we'll come on to Mohamed Baloumi in a little while. But what I would say is they were 2-1 up at the break, and then they came out the second half with the foot down. They got the third goal. Lucky or not, it doesn't really matter. They got in the position, and Zambrano had a shot, and he got his rewards. So they instead of sitting on a 2-1 and then allowing Cardiff back in the game, they've gone 3-1 up, almost to take the game away from Cardiff. Yes, there was a spell basically from the moment funny enough, the Baloumi went off, which was in the 59th minute. They went really sloppy. They did. They looked lethargic. They were giving the ball away. Pandor made a couple of really important saves. And then obviously they get the 4th goal in injury time, which was a ridiculous foul to give away, to be fair. But by the by. But yeah, there was that spell after probably a 20 minute spell maybe, where they were just really sloppy and Cardiff had a go. And 4-1 did flatter City, I thought. It was one of those games, one of those classic Championship games where you come away from it going, that's a hammering. But it wasn't. If you look at the stats, those of us that watched the game that were there, I think you'd be hard pushed to say that City were, it was a 4-1 game, because Cardiff created a lot of chances, and but for poor finishing, but for Pandor making a couple of really good saves, some decent defending. I thought Louis Coyle was exceptional again. It could have been. I don't disagree with you. It could have been different. But what my point being is, when they've gone 2-1 up, instead of sitting back and then having that spell that they did, they're 3-1 up, and they've got a bit more in the bank. Baby steps. But I thought that ability to take the game away is key. Fletch?
I would agree on the first 10-15 minutes. I felt they invited pressure. And on another day, if we were going back to the matches against Leeds or Sheffield United, for example, I think they would have been a little bit more prolific and taken one of those chances. So that comes down possibly to Cardiff's confidence at the moment, because their media have suggested that they just fell apart. They're out of confidence and the table doesn't lie. They've got 1 point after 7 matches. But I think what I've seen, especially from these 2 wins, is once they get that goal, if they get themselves level, they then kick on. They do kick on with goals, not necessarily in a full 10 out of 10 fashion, but they're at least scoring, which is an early positive. The thing that I take from the game, having watched it back, is starting to sort of piece together in my mind. There's still 1 or 2 pieces of the jigsaw left, but I'm starting to put together a starting 11 in my mind, which almost works. I think Miller should come in on the left-hand side now. I think he offers so much more than Irma being shoehorned out there. If you're going to play Irma, he needs to be through the middle. I was relieved as well, Baz, when I saw the scoreline. But then I looked at the scoreline, and having not been there, I thought, well, that seems quite emphatic. And then watching the game back, it didn't appear so in the first 15-20 minutes. So that's the only negative for me. But the positive overall is they seem to, when they get a goal, if they can get themselves back into the game, that gives them a heap of confidence, which allows them to kick on. In this case, Cardiff fell apart. So another team like a Norwich, which we'll come to later, might offer a sterner test. But let's be positive, after 2 games, they now need to get that next victory against a team that are going to offer a little bit more of a difficult challenge.
Go on, Burnsy.
Yeah, let me read some of the stuff that came in on Twitter to the 1904 Club. Bobby Joyce says, I was really up for the game, but in all honesty, it was generally boring, and we could have easily been 4-3 down if it wasn't for Cardiff's poor finishing. We'll take the positives, but wasn't thrilling attacking football by any stretch. Jason Statham, not the actor, I presume, unless he suddenly burst through the wall behind Fletch there in a dynamic action movie style. So I don't think it's that Jason Statham, but you never know. Well played in spells, still a little too open. If Walter finds his settled 11, we could be a good team. We were definitely more positive. And Steve Benwell, the host Tiger, says, it looks like we've brought in some decent players and they are improving. But despite a couple of wins, I'm still to be convinced by Walter's system. It gives the opposition so many chances. Despite the 4-1 scoreline, even Cardiff could have 3 or 4. I mean, I'm in agreement with Steve, the Hove Tiger there. I am still trying to get my head around the system. There was a couple of points in the first half, and I know this is maybe nitpicking the 1-4-1 and everything like that, but on the West Stand side where I'm sitting up the top, and a yard in from the touchline, they've got 4 players all along the left touchline. And I'm thinking, what's that about? They're all in a line, like 20 yards apart. You know, the ball's with the left back or whoever was at left back at the time. And then there's 3 players in a line ahead of him. And I'm thinking, now that happened twice, so it's not coincidence. I'm thinking, what's the theory here? What's going on, Baz?
Well, it was systematic for if you think of the Robinson goal, Walter was very unhappy. A lot of people said it was offside. I mean, in real time, it looked very close. You know, I'm doing a million things as well as watching the game at the same time, so I don't quite get the same view as some other people do. But even if he was offside, if you look at their defensive shape at the point that the ball is played through to Robinson and where he is, they're all over the place. You know, there's 2 defenders and that's it. And you could say, well, if he's offside, so that in effect the offside trap is worked a treat. Well, I think that's a bit flaky, if I'm honest. I don't think there was an offside trap there at all. I think it was just a mishmash, and they got unlucky or lucky, whichever way you want to. But you know, obviously he's gone away, and he scored a really good finish. But so many times down that side, they get exposed. They don't get exposed so much when Louis, because Louis Coyle is obviously, and I thought he was brilliant again, proper skipper's display. They don't get exposed near as much as on that right hand side. And obviously, he's brought Cody Drame in on the left because he's not getting anywhere near what he wants from Ryan Giles, and also earlier in the season with Matty Jacobs. So he's now playing a right back at left back because he's not happy with his left back options. That's clear. But they're still getting used to they're still getting used to it, aren't they? And I think we see so many chances from opposition teams come down that side. And if you're QPR or if you're Norwich this week, you're looking at that side and you're saying, you know, let's try and avoid the far side because Louis Coyle is a dogged defender. He's resolute. He's tactically aware. You know, he knows what he's doing. On the left side, and I thought Drame was good at Stoke and was okay on Saturday in part. But that's an area of weakness for me, Burnsy.
What I'm getting at is when they've got the ball, they're in their own half. They've got 3 other players ahead of whoever's at left back up the field, all within a yard of the touchline going forward. Fletch, what's the theory? Come on, I know you like this sort of stuff.
They're trying to overload that side of the pitch, aren't they? That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get. He's obviously
there's no angles.
No, but he's identified a weakness in the opposition. He thinks that he can get by overloading numbers on that side. He can get numbers overloaded and then free up somebody in the middle of the park. Or even there was a chance. They created a chance really early on. It might have even been in the first couple of minutes where they overloaded the left side. They won the ball. I think was it Regan who burst forward and he tried to played it through to Bellumi on the right and they got 2-on-1 and Bellumi didn't make the most of it. But it's almost like that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to overload one side to shift the opposition to one side to create a quick turn or a quick transition to go the other way quickly, and it almost worked. But yeah, go on, Fletch. Sorry,
it's a better explanation. Right. Go on, Fletch.
Well, I'll take Baz's first point. The idea, I think, is to overload and try and pull a fullback or even pull a centre half or just, you know, drift those players across so then you can switch it out the other way possibly. But I want to just see more stuff through the middle. I want to see, like, Zambrano clearly has the quality. From what I've seen. I think when he gets on the ball, he can turn and spin and connect those different areas of the pitch, whether it goes wide or it goes through the middle. It's very complicated, and we're not players or managers, so I can't see why we're overloading to that extent. I sometimes you can have two people there and they can play a little 1-2 or whatever and try and pull one player out so you get space in behind to then make that cross. But if all the players are going there at the same time, then it becomes complicated and players are thinking, well, hang on, why are you there? Why are you there? Shouldn't you be over there or whatnot? And then to an extent, Cardiff could have just turned around and gone, well, if you're going to just go wherever you want, lads, if you're going to go out wide, we'll just sit in our shape and be happy. But they didn't. They still conceded 4. So in answer to your question, Burnsy, apart from trying to overload, I don't really know how to answer it because
Okay, well, I'll take that. You've enlightened me a bit, so I appreciate that, fellas. IG Wright, Ian Glenn says to the 1904 Club, you can get in touch. We tend to put a tweet out on a Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, or more than one tweet. So feel free to get in touch with us. It helps the show along. There's still a concern about how they move the ball around at the back for me. I admire that style of play, but boy, is it heart in mouth stuff. Well, it's heart attack football. I think we got our first real glimpse on Saturday.
But on top of
there
that,
needs to be more zip from... Sorry, Fletch.
I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt you. I thought there was a little bit more zip. I thought there was a bit more pace to it. Okay, it's not fully there yet, but I think it's quicker than the way Liam's side passed it around the back, if you want to compare the two styles. So they're getting there. Okay. They are getting there. I mean, I will hold my hands up and admit I've been very impatient at the start of this season. I'm happy to take my medicine if it eventually clicks. So it's good to see that there is something bubbling away in the right direction.
Ian, just to finish that, there needs to be more zip from back to midfield to front. I'm admiring the qualities of Zambrano and Bellumi, but swap Omar for Miller. Yeah, I was mystified that Miller didn't start. And in fairness to Omar, I thought he did all right. There was some nice little bursts from him, but Miller looked a shoo-in for me to start. Why didn't he, Baz? What did he say about that after the game?
Well, he wanted to stick with it. There was a discussion on social media before the game because I raised an eyebrow about the team selection that Miller didn't start, and there was one or two that suggested, well, we won at Stoke, don't change it. Yeah, I can see that point, but the first half team at Stoke, was okay, but they were a goal down, hadn't had a shot on target, and were just okay. Nothing more than that. It was the changes at the start of the second half with Miller coming on, and then a bit later, Xavier Simons and of course Regan, that really sparked them into life. So I was surprised. I don't think Abdouche has been anything like what I would have wanted to see from him this season. I agree with you, Burns. I thought he did okay on Saturday, but okay is not enough for a player that you spent £4 or £5 million on and has clearly got the technical ability to produce more. I must admit, I'm still a bit scarred by his lack of tracking back against Sheffield United. So that's kind of maybe my judgment's a bit clouded. I'm a bit like that worried me. But I would have started Liam Miller. I would have gone Miller on one side and Bellumi down t'other. And but what concern. I think they can get more out of Zambrano, and I think he's done all right. To factor in, he's really young. He's come to a foreign country, doesn't speak a word of the Queen's. He's obviously got this drug ban hanging over him, which is going to come at some point, we expect. So I actually think he's done okay, particularly in what he's been asked of him. But I don't think he sees enough of the ball. I think when he gets on the ball, he shows quality, but too often, and this comes back to what we were talking about earlier on, too often they just bypass the midfield. And I understand he wants to get the ball forward quickly, particularly he wants to get it out to his wingers quickly. But when you've got players like Slater and you've got players like Zambrano, and I'm sure Alzate, we saw him for a cameo, when we see a bit more of him, they're players that want to get on the ball and can drive you forward. So I don't understand why we aren't trying to pick them out and instead trying to maybe try and do a bit too much through, instead of utilising those players that are clearly very good technicians and good on the ball, Burnsy.
There was a lot of chatter on Twitter about that on Saturday night as to why the centre halves weren't passing into Zambrano, but it's tactical. Fletch must be.
Yeah, it is tactical, because I made this point last week. I personally, I know we all have our different style preferences, what we want to see played. But I would prefer someone to sit in alongside Zambrano personally. Now, I know he's not going to do that, but that at least gives Zambrano the opportunity to go one way, and whether it be Slater, for example, if he goes the other way, that creates two passing angles for these centre halves to pass out to. If you've got take Sheffield United, for example, the two centre mids either side of Finn Burns just went forward straight away, and you created that massive gap where you could have put all the away team coaches in for the Sheffield United fans. It was that wide. So if you've got another person there who's able to bring the ball and connect the play, it'll work. I think, so for me, that is. I also think Liam Miller, just to offer a slightly unorthodox point of view, is I've really liked what I've seen from him. He's sharp, he's quick, he really likes to drive at the fullbacks and other defenders, players around him. But sometimes a player is better suited. I'm only saying this because I've seen it in a couple of games I've covered elsewhere. Some players are good in bite-sized moments. And what I mean by that is if you bring a player on who's completely fresh around the 60-minute, 65-minute mark to cause as much carnage as they can in 25 minutes, where they can go full chat, don't risk a hamstring or something like that, against a fatigued fullback or centre-half, they can do more damage. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment from Liam Miller.
I could see that theory, but given what we've seen, we want to see more. I think you touched. You touched, and I know we'll talk more about QPR coming up, but you just touched on Balumi. Baz, what did you make of his performance, and is he going to miss QPR? What's the latest on the ankle injury, just so we get some up-to-date stuff?
He's a doubt. He was complaining of he got a heavy kick, didn't he? I think it was from Will Fish in the build up to the goal, but he managed to carry on and obviously execute that exquisite finish. Yeah, so he's a concern. We will have. I'm seeing Tim a little bit later. So obviously this podcast we're recording Monday morning. I'm going to see Tim pretty much as soon as we're done here. So there'll be an update this afternoon on Mohamed. No doubt that will be a blow, because I thought he did well at Stoke, particularly. Obviously he won the penalty, but he made a really clever run off the ball for Regan Slater's goal, the second goal at Stoke, where Balumi pulls away the defender. His run pulls off and he drags the defender away, which opens up the space for Regan to score. I thought he was terrific on Saturday. It coincided. City's drop off in the second half when they went really sloppy and they looked jaded, they looked leggy, they were just really sloppy and awful on the ball. Coincided with him going off, as I said earlier, just before the hour mark. So he will be a loss. But if he can't play, what they have got now with 17 new signings is options, and plenty of them. And you would imagine that he'd go mid. I still think away from home he will go. Abdouche and probably Liam Miller will come in rather than going Miller on one side and Kamara on t'other. So look, we'll see. But I enjoyed his performance, Burnsy. I thought he was lively. It was funny because having watched Sissoko for Plymouth the night before completely tear Luton to pieces, and he was impressive when we played down there in August, the second game of the season at Home Park. I watched Sissoko and I was really impressed. And I was thinking on Friday night, maybe Balumi he's got that devilment about him, but he's also got that rawness that we like to see in young players. And his first goal, a bit fortunate. Did he mean it? Only he knows. Doesn't really matter. It went in the net. But his second one, and I should say as well, we've criticised Malem on this podcast, and I don't think we've seen much from Malem, but I thought he was okay on Saturday. And his pass through for Balumi's run was absolutely inch perfect, time to perfection, and the finish was out of this world, wasn't it? And real class. What did you think, Burnsy?
He gets in good positions, Malem, and maybe he lost his way for a few games, but you think back to the header against the bar, that was from a good position. The opening goal on Saturday, he was in a good position, and I'm presuming he distracted the goalkeeper as the cross came in
and the defender is and the run of the defender as well. So yeah, definitely.
So he's sort of quietly going about his business, and I know there's a few fans saying, "Well, what's he about? Why is he in the side?" I personally think there's something there. I would like to see more. I'm sure he'd like to see more. His manager would like to see more, but he's getting in decent areas. So we'll see how it's developed. Like all of them, it's early days. It's coming together. Balumi was impressive. The second finish was quality. It was a lovely little dink, and showed good awareness. And let's see how he goes. I hope he plays against QPR. Can I mention a couple more messages coming into the 1904 club? George Bell says, players now getting used to playing together, hence the improved performances. But we've just played two clubs in turmoil and still conceded way too many chances, 17 against Cardiff. Just not convinced Walter's tactics are sustainable if the aim is top six, as better sides will pick us off. I think that last bit is, given what we've seen so far, probably reasonable. Fletch?
I don't know, actually, because I think there's rotations, isn't there, that we will see later in the season where if someone drops out, I think given the volume of players that have been brought in, there's probably going to be somebody there who's perfectly capable of, stepping into the team. I think, we mentioned and discussed Malem there. I think that there's plenty of centre mids, for example, just for their sake, that you can move somebody in and it doesn't really distract the shape when you've got a team that's, more settled. I think we are at that point where we've seen the real harem and scarum stuff, and we're starting to maybe just see some possible shoots of positivity, which is nice. I want to see what players like Alzate can offer before making a judgment, because he hasn't played a minute yet. Kamara hasn't really played much so far since joining, so these players are still getting up to speed as well. Listening to George's point about 17 shots, I take the words of the caretaker manager who said they were going to go at it anyway. They were going to try and completely take the handbrake off and just go shooting forward. So that was a different Cardiff team to what we've seen so far this season that had only scored one goal. So maybe Cardiff fans are thinking, well, that's a ray of positivity for them. If you're scoring 4, though, you're still doing your job. You're still doing well. I wouldn't change things too much for QPR on Tuesday night.
McDonald says, feels like we're in a good place with a lot of room to grow, given the likes of Alzate, Hughes, Pedro, etc., still to properly come into the side. I'd like to see us beat a better side than Stoke and Cardiff to define the progress made, though. And Oliver Drew to the 1904 club. Slowly but surely, the squad are getting to know each other. Proof in the pudding will be where we are towards Christmas, if still in the top half. We've had a very decent first few months. Well, it's been a bit wobbly at times, Oliver. Let's see. Still feels a bit too open at times, but goals are flowing. Oliver, thank you for your contributions. More of them to come. Baz, I see somebody started the January transfer speculation already. You've got a little story up online today about a Lincoln City midfielder, possible interest. Anything?
Yeah, I think the young lad at Lincoln's done well, but we'll come on to that just before. Sorry, you took me by surprise there. I think
he's got his name.
Yeah. Ethan. Earthanol. Do you pronounce it
Earthanol? I don't know.
Yeah. But
it sounds Spanish, but it's not. It's H's rather than J's.
Yeah, he's from your neck of the woods, isn't he?
Scottish. Yeah.
Look, these two games were hugely important across just on so many levels. They've got 6 points. They've scored 7 goals. Now they've got 2 really difficult away games. Historically, in recent times, QPR's not been a happy hunting ground for it wasn't for Shota. They got Tonk undershot her. They got tonked under. I mean, the performance under Liam there, like, just before Christmas, was garbage. They got well beaten by a QPR team at that point that was struggling. QPR have only won one game this season, albeit that was at Luton. They've not won a game at home yet this season. So that is a game that you fancy City going there with a bit of confidence and a bit of momentum at the back. They've got a chance. Norwich is always a difficult game at the best of times. And they, particularly when they get extra help from referees with the ball going out of play, as we know only too well, because we saw what happened on the opening day of last season when their winning goal was out of play, and they did the same at Derby. So who knows what's going to happen there? But then you come back, then you have the break. Obviously, they're going to Turkey for a week, which will be really, really important. And then they come back and they've got home games against Sunderland and Burnley, and that the games, the block of games next month. Starting running up from between the breaks are really difficult. There's some really difficult games in there, so they don't get any easier. But this week is a real test for them. Obviously, they've won away at Stoke, so they've won the last away game. If they could go to QPR and get a positive result, and then you're setting up yourself for Norwich, and that's as I said before, that Norwich is always, for any team, not just Hull City, but any team going to Carrow Road is never a particularly enjoyable experience on the pitch. At least it's superb off it, I should say. But these two games are really, really difficult for them, aren't they?
Yeah, Fletch, I take it he's just slipped the turkey thing in there. Baz is going down the local chemist to get his factor 30, I suspect.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah. That's all right.
Still of it now, Baz.
Still no 1904 club live from Turkey,
exactly.
Is there? With all of us.
You can get 3 seats in a row at least, even if Prots can't manage it.
Business class, Baz.
I don't think, and I stand to be corrected, on the subject of Turkey, they're going back to Antalya, for those that don't know. They fly out next Monday, which is, when you look at the weather outside here, it's, what a nice change of direction. But yeah, so they're flying out to Antalya on Monday for 5 days. They fly back on Saturday, and they're using it. They're going to use it as a really important. I think they're going to play a game out there. It's going to be really important for them, actually, given the fact that they've obviously signed so many players. 16 of them have come. This is amazing, isn't it? 16 players have signed since they got back from Turkey. The only new player out in Turkey for pre-season back in July was Ryan Giles. New, if you want to call it that. Obviously, he wasn't that new. Everybody else arrived after that. Malum, Cody Drame was the first one to arrive after they got back, and then Malum, and then the tsunami of players then arrived. But yeah, so that'll be really important, won't it? Because it gives them a chance to spend some time together, to do more work on the training ground. Casey Palmer and Liam Miller won't be there because they'll be away on international duty, which is a shame for them not to be a part of it, but obviously great for them to be out playing for their countries. So yeah, as I understand it, I don't think media are going. I can't go because I'm already away at the end of next week. I'm going away with some friends.
Play the tiny violin now. I'm playing the tiny violin. Oh.
You could go if there's an invite. If an invite happens to come from officially from the club. I know the chairman. I've spoken to the chairman about it, but I've sort of said I can't. I'm away. But if you want to go with Burnsy, you can.
It's not going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen.
Anyway, let's talk about.
My happy smiling countenance round the camp. Anyway. Let's
talk about the transfer links to what's his name is Ethan Erhanon. He's a defensive midfielder, plays for Lincoln City. Hugely well respected at that level. He's 23, I think. Played again on Saturday for them as they won at Cambridge. They're in the top 6. So I would be surprised if he was a player they weren't looking at because of his age, because of his profile. But they've obviously already got 600 midfielders. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, look, there's going to be more and more of them coming out, more and more transfer links. They're going to be active in January. How much they can do remains to be seen because obviously they've signed an awful lot of players. So there isn't that much room in the squad, and you have to be careful not just to keep signing players. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to work out they might go for a striker. I think there's an acceptance that they haven't got what they wanted in terms of attacking players in January, strikers in January. Strikers in the summer, I should say. João Pedro is an attacking player, but he's not an out-and-out forward. When we get to see him, we'll have to wait and see. I'd be surprised if we saw him before, this week, because obviously he's not played and not really trained at a high level. So we'll have to wait and see, Burnsy.
Just on the subject of strikers, what are the pair of you making at Beddy? A big thing to get his goal on Saturday. I thought he was in two decent positions in the first half, but seemed a little hesitant. Now, I don't know whether that was just slowness of thought or slowness of body. I'm saying hesitant rather than slow. His game, he's working and everything like that. But I'm as I suppose all of us are, we're still trying to suss him out. I think the penalty and the goal will do a lot for his confidence. Fletch?
I've been quietly happy with him in the sense of there are elements of his game that remind me of Delap, not as visible as what Delap did. So an example I would go with is at Leeds United when he was bursting through on Rodon and he got into the penalty area. His strength just seemed to take the defender away, which I like. I think if you're going to play up top on your own, you need that combination of pace and strength. Now, maybe he's not the quickest player, which I accept. I think Delap is quicker if you put them two in a 100-meter sprint. But I think he's a player, now that he's got those 2 goals, there could be a snowball effect. I give him the benefit of the doubt because we've spoken about it before. I don't think he's had anywhere near the level of service that other players would have had last season. He's definitely leaning more towards an Oscar-type player for me rather than a Liam Delap if you were playing him up front. But I've been quietly happy with him. Not doing cartwheels about him, but I certainly see something there to get positive, encouraged about going forward.
I liked him on Saturday.
You do cartwheels, Fletch?
Cartwheels, backflips, the lot. Do the lot, mate. Really? Anything you can do.
Yeah, I liked him on Saturday. I thought he looked. I thought that was his best display. He created a really good chance for himself in the first half, back to goal, overpowered the centre half, and banged one at the top corner. And Jack Alnick, who was the Cardiff goalkeeper, got man of the match against Leeds last week, did so again this week, made a terrific save. He made another absolute belting save to deny Big Chris in the second half. And obviously, I liked him. I liked a lot of the work he did. I thought I feel like he's starting to find a bit of rhythm now. He needs a goal. He took the penalty really well, to be fair. It was a really confident against the goalkeeper, as I say, that had kind of the wood over him up to that point in the game and made some good saves from him. Really, really calm, confident penalty from a striker that hadn't scored at all. So I'm hoping now that, albeit a penalty, that gives him a bit of confidence. Strikers thrive on confidence and thrive on goals. It's the currency they work in. So we have to wait and see. I still think they're I'm not going to change my opinion on the fact that I still think they're a quality striker light up front. And I think if they had got their preferred target, look, let's say it as it is. If they'd have signed Fofana from Chelsea on deadline day, as they wanted to do, and were prepared to spend a lot of money to do that, Fofana would be their number 1 striker, and Bedia and Burstow would be on the bench. They haven't done that, so by virtue of that, Bedia is going to be their number 1 striker, unless he gets injured or a suspension or just he can't hit a barn door with a bag of sand. Then Burstow, I keep saying Burstow, Johnny Burstow. Mason Burstow comes in and leads the line, but I don't see that anytime soon. And I thought he did well on Saturday, and as I say, two great chances that he created for himself that were, but for banging goalkeeping saves, he might walk away with a hat trick.
And let's hope he develops. There's signs of potential. I still come back to the first game overhead kick, and I thought, yeah, go on, son, that's nice. So there's something in there. Just on general sort of play, Sue CR says, as I see it, 11 players are given a position to start, and from the whistle, it's a free for all. LOL. So yeah, yeah, I sort of see what you're saying, Sue, but hopefully you're enjoying it. Where are we going next, Baz?
Yeah, I wanted to touch back upon the powers of recovery because I think it's now 8 points they've claimed from losing positions this season, which some teams don't get that in the season. So to have claimed that in the first 7 games is testament to their character. And I think 1 or 2 questions at the start of the season were raised about the dressing room, about do they have the leaders away from Louis Coyle? And I think we've seen, particularly against Stoke and against Cardiff, that the ability to fall behind and respond quickly. And that is, ideally, we'd like to see at QPR tomorrow night them going in for the first time under Tim Walter, getting the first goal and going on and winning from there. We don't know yet how they operate when they go in front for the first time in the game. We don't know whether they fall back into sitting back and inviting pressure, or do they go on and try and get a second and a third? We don't yet know. So that for me would be interesting. But I'm impressed with the way they do have that ability to come back. You can't keep doing that because that ain't going to work all season. You can't go behind in every game and then come back and win 3 or 4-1. So they do need to at some point find a way to lead a match. But I just wanted to reference that. It might even be more than 8 points actually when you think they came back from.
No, it is 8 points, Baz.
No, it is it?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's decent, and also just the fact that can we play Cardiff every week, because that's now 8 successive wins over Cardiff, the longest run of us against any team in the EFL. So long may that continue. But yeah, I'm just really pleased that they came out of it. That with all the build up to the game, or the new kit, which looked great, all the celebrations and everything, and they've won a game. So let's look ahead to QPR.
It was a big win, and a big win, especially for Tim Walter. He would have been, for me, back under a bit of pressure if he'd lost that on Saturday. So congratulations to him. Pleased for him. Just on QPR and Saturday, this will link it from Jordan Garnett to the 1904 club. In light of the past couple of performances, do you think the players are now understanding what Walter wants? They're sort of getting there, I think, and winning games helps. Because if you don't win games and you're playing in a system that's strange to you, you start to look at the coach or whatever and think, well, what you on about? But if it actually brings some wins, I think that's important. Also, says Jordan, ahead of tomorrow's game, the QPR game, can you all foresee many changes? Not saying there should be. Fletch, were you going to go at this?
Well, just to go back to the previous point on Sue, I just wanted to make a point that there's only one team in the division that's been behind more times than Hull City, and that's Cardiff.
Say that again.
There's
Sorry,
only been one
that.
team. No, it's okay. There's only been one team in the division who's been behind more times and for longer than Hull City, and that's Cardiff. So
right, okay.
There needs to be that element. There needs to be that element of. I'm not saying they're not front-footed, but they need to get an early goal for me, because we need to see what they are like when they command a lead from early doors. We haven't seen that yet, and that's going to give other teams an issue where they've got to change their style, or they've got to go out of their way to make alterations, etc. Are the players understanding the system? I think they are. I think, because it's so complex and things, and I'm not saying we're idiots when it comes to understanding tactics. People have higher degrees of intelligence than others when it comes to tactical understanding, and I think there will be some fans who can see more than others that they can see shoots of tactical understanding. I think we're seeing it now in terms of how the players are playing. Liam Miller, we'll go back to, I think he's doing really well. We can all, and as I said before, we can all make our own tactical tweaks and whatnot. In terms of Zambrana, I want to see more of him on the ball. But the tactical understanding, I can see that they are quicker out of the back. Not to the maximum that I think they can go to this year. I think there's teams that are quicker than them at the moment. And teams last season, like Kieran McKenna's Ipswich, you could just zap it about all over the place. So the defence was the biggest job of building to get into that front three for me, because everyone was talking about pace. We are starting to see that. So there has to be some form of tactical understanding if they're starting to play quicker. However, they need to, for me, be a little tighter defensively. So whether or not it's the understanding of should a player pick up a certain player, what's the movement like? Is it down to the centre-half bursting out of the defence when they're in possession? Is that causing problems? So I think tactically, yes, they are understanding it, but now are we maybe seeing pros and cons that we discuss week in, week out?
Just on that point as well, that's something I put to Tim when I spoke to him before the game against Cardiff, the one about players believing in the system. It's very hard for players to believe in a new system and think that they're on the right path when they keep losing or they can't win games. And let's be honest, they didn't win a game in pre-season, and we know we've done that to death. Obviously, there was a lot of issues with player availability, etc., and the strength and quality of the squad. But irrespective of that, they didn't win a game, never looked like winning the game. Start of the season, didn't win a game, didn't look like winning the game. And it is hard. And Tim agreed, you know, and he's a manager that when you talk to him, he will say, I disagree or I agree. So he's very blunt, and I like that about him. And he said, you know, yeah, that's right. It's hard to get players to buy into a new system and into my philosophy when we're not winning and we're not scoring goals and things aren't going well and we're making mistakes. But suddenly you win a couple of games and you win them with a bit to spare. You score a few goals in the process, because let's be honest, they've not scored any goals before that. So that makes it easy. That's an easier sell for him, isn't it, on the training pitch when they're training before a game on the day of a game, or they're doing double sessions when they, you know, in the past he might have been at home sat on the Xbox playing FC 24 or whatever else they play. You know, now it makes his job as a manager easier to go, well, actually, yeah, we had a difficult start. X, Y, and Z are the reasons why. But now we've won 2 games. We've scored 7 goals. We've come from behind. We've done blah, blah, blah. And look, it does work. Yes, there are still things that there was. Look, we'd be lying if we sat here and said everything in the garden's rosy, because it isn't. No. This system isn't perfect. 2 results have made a massive difference to the way we all feel. And you know, they need to keep the pedal down. They are still fragile for me in transition. They are still very, very open. And the fact that Cardiff had 16 shots at goal, only hit the target with 4 of them, you know, that shows to me that they are easy to create chances against. That is something that they need to tighten up on. And I come back to my point that I think that the midfield unit can help with that. Go on, Fletch, you've got your finger wagging.
Well, just to ask a question of you, Baz, and possibly Burns as well. Have we now gone into the stage of Tim Walter's tactics where, you know, we've critiqued it week in, week out, but are we now in that element of where we can start discussing fine-tuning things rather than the actual whole system itself?
I think Burns,
are we seeing positives from the system?
I think there were positives. Yes, I think there were positives to the system. I've always thought that there were positives to the system. Even a few weeks ago when I was worried, and that worry hasn't gone away. I'm a bit happier now, of course, because I've seen 2 wins and I've seen them. I now actually feel like they can win a football match. I didn't feel before that they ever looked like winning a football match. Now they've broken that. They've done it at home. They've done it away. But I still have reservations about the system. Absolutely, I do. I'm not fickle enough to go, well, they've won 2 games, so everything's perfect, and we're all, you know, they're going to go and romp to the league title. I still have reservations about what I'm seeing. Yeah, they won 4-1 against a really poor Cardiff team who may well get relegated, but still created 16 shots on their goal. That isn't ideal. City were clinical and they took their chances at the other end. A bit of luck, yes, okay. Cross goes in, get a penalty, deflected shot. But you take your luck and you win. You know, you buy your ticket and all that nonsense. But they still have work to do. We're not suddenly out of the woods yet. And they could go to QPR and get beat 3-0. They could go to Norwich and get beat 3-0. And we're having a conversation next Monday about, Christ, it feels, you know, a long time since those 2 wins at home. So, those 2 wins against Stoke and Cardiff. So it's folly to suggest that they're out of the woods yet, because they're not. They're making progress. Things are going in the right direction. But the Championship is an evil mistress, and they can get beat. They could quite easily get beat on Tuesday night, and those frailties that we know are there get amplified away from home against QPR. So let's not get caught up in the hysteria. They are still a work in progress, and they will still lose football matches. and they still have to find a way of tightening up because they are still too open.
Mark, you've just sort of stolen his thunder there, Baz, on the 1904 club. Says, very entertaining game Saturday, gifted with many goals, albeit a bit manic at times. Important thing was the win. A defeat could have hastened Walter's exit, but he's bought some time. Many may remain to be convinced on tactics and the manager, but it's work in progress. Onwards.
I agree with that.
David Morritt says, 2 good wins, or was it just 2 wins against poor opposition? Fletch, were you going to say something?
I was just going to agree with the first part of that. I think it is a work in progress. And I would also agree that I think the 2 teams we've beaten are teams that are going to be down at the wrong end of the championship. I think you look at who they've played so far, their 2 defeats have come against teams in the top half. So, the acid test is when they go to places like QPR and Norwich, can they eke out results? You'd have to say at the moment that it's very, people are going to be in different camps over it. I don't see why not. I don't see why they can't get a point at QPR and go and test Norwich, because I think they score a lot but concede a lot as well historically. The reason why I raised the fine-tuning points of Baz previously is if you've scored 7 goals in 2 games, there clearly isn't an issue in the short term of the being able to put teams away that are there to be put away. I think now you have to look at maybe thinking, well, hang on, we've played 2 games, scored 7 goals. We know what works going one direction. Obviously, we'll do our homework on the opposition and how they play, but then you can maybe have more emphasis on different areas of the pitch. For example, maybe trying to move the ball out quicker, just as an example. Or being tighter defensively, getting that shape.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are going to be... There's so much... I don't know. I feel like we're in a world now where you can't have an opinion without somebody slagging you off or hammering you, whether you're in our job or whether you're a supporter. A supporter can raise legitimate concerns about their football club, and that's fine. They don't have to be, completely caught up and, poppy-eyed that everything's perfect. They can still raise legitimate concerns. Also, City can only beat what's in front of them, and had they have lost to Stoke and Cardiff or drawn to them, we would have all been raising questions about them. So they deserve they deserve, for me, a huge amount of credit, because there was a lot of, not everybody knows it, but there's an awful lot behind the scenes. Of course there's going to be questions asked. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. The manager hadn't started well. Yes, he hadn't got his players. The players that had come in maybe hadn't had the impact, all those sorts of things. But I think there was other things that within games that people were raising. Look, any manager in the Championship that doesn't win a game is going to be under pressure, whether he's been in the job. Mark Robins is under massive pressure again now. There's a lot of talk about him losing his job. So he's been in the job for 5 years. There's a lot of talk about managers that have been in the job for a week losing their job. So, people are right to raise questions. That's their right. That's football. That's what it's all about, is having an opinion, raising questions. And you don't have to, if you want to get caught up in hysteria and think City are going to win the league, having won 2 games, great. Why not? Who's to say you can't? If you also want to raise questions and go, actually, I'm buzzing that we won a game. I love seeing us score 4 goals at home because we've been crap at home for donkeys. But I've also got reservations. That is fine as well. You don't have to be in either camp. You can fluctuate. You can go from saying, I wanted Tim Walter sacked after 2 games because I thought it was rubbish. Now we've won 2 games. I'm starting to see signs of recovery. I think give him plenty of time. You can change. It's not binary. We don't have to be like in one camp all the time. We can change our mood based on what we're seeing and what we're hearing and what we talk to people. So. For me, I'm just really pleased. They've won 2 games of football. Go and win at QPR on Tuesday night, and then we take a point at Norwich, and suddenly you're going into the international break, because those 2 home games after the break, Sunderland and Burnley, will be real tests. Sunderland have started well. They've had a couple of wobbles. Burnley, again, started okay, a couple of wobbles, but we'll be there or thereabouts. So those 2 home games coming up after the break are massive. And if they can get 4 points from those 2 games, I think we'll go away going, that they're on the right track. But it is still too early to get too caught up in the hysteria that they've beaten 2 fairly average teams, but they have beaten them. So let's give them credit. Let's enjoy the fact they've beaten them, because quite easily they could have lost. They were 1-0 down in both games. So this whole conversation could have been so very different. So I just want to give them some credit. Say they've come back from behind. They've scored some good goals. There's some really exciting, promising signs. I love watching Bloomy. I thought Coyley was incredible. The goalkeeper, although I still think Rushworth should be brought in. I think Pandor, I'm a big fan of him as a guy. I like him. I think he's settling to the task really well. But I would still bring Rushworth in. But that's probably a conversation for another day because I know we're a bit short of time, Burnsy.
No, I was just going to say I hope somebody filled in the health and safety forms for the 1904 club today. I was a bit worried you were going to bang your head if you fell off your soapbox there, Baz.
Well, I get on it every week, and I get moaned at for getting on my soapbox. But all I am is passionate, and I care. You know, I want this club. I love this club. I want the club to win football matches. I want them to do well. So it comes from a good. My passion comes from a good place.
He's off. He's off again. Nutmeg Lionel says, "Let's not get too excited just yet. That was a marked improvement, and the players are getting there with Walter Ball, but there's still lots of work to do. Don't get me wrong; it's great to get 2 wins in a row, but we need to remember who they were against: an utter shambles and a car crash." Says Nutmeg Lionel on Twitter. Thank you for all your messages to the 1904 club. Do we fancy them at QPR?
Just quickly on that subject, just want to say, it's really nice when people come up and take the time out of the day to say we love the podcast, because I know it gives a lot of people an hour of it kills an hour basically of us rambling. So a few people came up on Saturday, including the Fat Bowl Sausage. He popped up to the press box to say hello. So it was nice to see the Fat Bowl Sausage in person and have a bit of a chat before kick-off. Burnsy, sorry, go on.
No, is he not now, given the Prime Minister's gaffe, is he not now renamed the Fat Bald Hostage? No? Just thought I'd drop that in, just be newsy. Don't look at me like that, Fletch. Anyway, we've probably got a couple of minutes. Do we fancy them at QPR? They've had 1 win away at Luton since then, 2 draws, 1 loss. Chair's injured, not likely to play. I actually fancied them to make the playoffs this season. I don't know why, but the City perfectly capable of getting a result. Fletch, what are you thinking?
Really quickly, I think possibly win. I think it's in that sort of realm of could be literally anything. I liked what Martí Cifuentes did last season, so time will tell. Possibly a couple of changes. Game comes at the right time. You want a Tuesday night game after pumping someone with 4 goals, so why not? Why not?
And can I just say, as a bit of feedback, I enjoyed the 120th birthday edition of the 1904 club. So well done, Baz. It was good. It was nice to hear some of the voices and what they thought. I'd have loved to have talked to some of the ex-players and ex-managers who were there on Saturday to get the perspective on what they thought of Tim Walter's Hull City, but maybe we'll get some guests on the 1904 club in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. If you've not listened to that, do download it. Nick Barnby, Brian Horton, Peter Taylor, amongst others, and yourself, Burnsy. So, yeah, that was a real pleasure to put together. We would have loved to have had more people, Ash, Dino, etc. But it was an hour and 45 as it was, and with the best will in the world, people just aren't going to listen to it if it's 3 hours long. So anyway, that's all we've got time for. In terms of Burnsy, yes, go to QPR and win the game, and then you take whatever you can at Norwich, and I think that is the perfect way to go to Turkey next Monday. Everybody, thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. As always, keep getting in touch. Send us your thoughts. It doesn't have to be after a game. It can be at any point in the day. If you've got something you want to get off your chest, you want to ask a question that we can potentially put to Tim Walter or the football club, do get in touch. And I just want to sign off by saying once again, a huge credit to Joe and everybody at the football club for the job they did with the 120. I hope the fans, you guys as supporters, enjoyed what they did, because it was a pleasure. They were really helpful to me and to us. And the food on Saturday was just, it gets better and better. My God, I could not close the show without commenting on Henry and the food guys, because they're outrageous. Right. Thank you, Burnsy. Thanks, Fletch. Prutz, he's not here. And we'll be back next week, hopefully after 6 more points on our travels. Take care.